Hope everyone's doing well and welcome back to another video. So cool. A bit of a later upload today on purpose. It's actually worked out quite well. Wanted to get this out on the Monday, but we'll start off with Forex Factory before we get onto DXY and the standard stuff. This week right now is the first week of December. Right, we touched on it last week. The market is about to start slowing down. It sort of already has to a degree. And past that, even in this week specifically, we don't have a lot coming up, right? So we have today specifically 3 p.m. news, which just passed for the DXY. We had some JPY news. We don't really have much going on tomorrow. Then on the Wednesday, we have the ADP for the US dollar, but no NFP this week being shown. And on the Thursday, unemployment claims, and then a couple news events on the Friday as well, right? Nothing too major aside from the ADP, I would say here. So cool. As you guys can see, right, we had an anchor here to here. We were working off that previous range, which was from this low to that high, where we'd retraced into this, or rather we could even say all the way to this low, and we retraced into that. And I would sort of still consider us within the same range. We've left like relative equal highs. We've come back to the discount and we've got some equal lows to work with, right? Now, what we're seeing here, of course, isn't great for our EU position. We'll go over to EU first. And we've actually been stopped at break even. I know it says stop loss trim. The reason I've left that there is because we've entered, we've then done the first trim to here once you had somewhat of a move away, and then now we've been stopped break even, which it's not the end of the world. It's not a bad result. It is very frustrating. We sort of held that for a little while and we didn't close out. But from here, I would say sort of the area we had reached, 9 times out of 10 I expect a reversal, especially the way we initially closed in the fair value gap and then we moved higher. It wasn't a major cause for concern, but we did expect a turnaround. So now what can we still look for? Now, as you guys can see, I still have that larger range marked out on my chart. It wouldn't surprise me if this still plays out. But if we remove all the markings, just for a second, we just take a look at this, it's very clearly consolidated, right? Failed to take the high that time, of course, that's fine. That was a retracement. We've then failed to take the low, and then gone all the way back to the highs. So if we do want to see a turnaround, it's very likely we will see some liquidity run out. Same with DXY's equal lows. We can mark out this and this, considering our proximity to it now, right? And from there, if we do sort of run that liquidity out and then have somewhat of a reversal on a lower time frame, then we can consider, okay, what, the high of the consolidation or some of the internal buy side of the consolidation has been swept, and now we can expect a turnaround down here towards these targets. Past that, just take a general look at the monthly. For the DXY, it's pretty obvious, right? We want to go over that previous monthly low, which is the equal lows. And from there, we may consider a reversal. Overall, December's candle, very small. November's candle, it's not anything amazing. And I wouldn't be surprised if, December doesn't really add on much to this. But what I would expect is once we get that run here, we may get somewhat of a kick up. The last sort of spurts of price action before it really fizzles out for the year. And then, in January, we'll reconsider. Overall, this is a monthly consolidation. I do think going into next year, we will get lower dollar. Therefore, just very simply put, in the short term, the reason we can still support that idea of going long on the DXY, because I'd expect that next year we come in, we sort of run higher here, accumulation, manipulation this way, distribution, and we may already start that sort of, internal manipulation to go a little bit higher, and then the real expansion will come in next year to sort of put the high of the year somewhere here, and then of course the bigger move lower. But we'll touch more on that in a couple of weeks after we see what's happened. But yeah. US 10-year, not much to add. Again, monthly chart gives a clear picture here. Very consolidated, very tight. Inside candle last month. If we go over to the daily, not much to add. Very consolidated. Made a move to the lows, going back to the highs, and there's not much to work with here. Euro GBP finally giving us that little run. Will this be the reversal? I would anticipate very similar. We can dig a little bit deeper. We can go for that previous monthly low. Is very close by. We've had, very choppy price action, which EG does tend to give every now and again. And it wouldn't surprise me if we sort of just stay in this larger range that we've marked out. If we don't really make a move out of this shit, I'm seeing this as an accumulation, even where we are right now. And the real manipulation would likely be lower than this, taking Bruce monthly low, and then we could, potentially see is it willing to give another kick up or not yet. USDCAD. See, if somebody didn't do intra-market analysis, or rather intermarket analysis, this could be a very, very deceiving chart. What looks like somewhat of a reversal. And I wouldn't consider it that, right? Of course, this has dropped off quite hard due to DXY kicking lower, but what may seem like a market structure shift or a break structure, I wouldn't really consider that. I wouldn't really trade this either. I wouldn't really go long on this yet, right? Maybe if it gave that initial move off and you had something to work with, but this is where it's important to sort of look at everything as a bigger picture and realize, somebody may think, okay, this is the start of the market maker sell model, we're going to sell off here, and now the DXY is just going to sweep some equal lows and then give the turnaround back to the buy side, right? But yeah, not much to add here. If it digs very deep into this, which it does look like it's willing to do, and you get somewhat of a turnaround, then there's a decent amount of area to play with back to the highs. USDJPY, still got the buy side target in sight for us. Swept the previous weekly low already, trade into this fair value gap. You want to see how this candle closes, but in terms of trade opportunities, there's nothing I'd massively favor here. It does, I would consider this potentially over the USDCAD for now. It could give a nice OTE to complete the market maker buy model back to this high, but it's not something I'm really keen on tampering with. You guys will see, right? Anyways, that as we sort of, of course, like I said, the price action will fizzle out and we get towards the end of the year, we're just not really going to be keen on taking any swing positions, even, potentially intraday, unless something's super, super nice. Maybe we're just not going to be bothered about it. So monthly candle, that is a good closure for gold. I would expect from here the next monthly candle to continue the move up. I do think more liquidity can flow into gold because it may flow out of other markets, and we can, push back for that all-time high, the big round number around 4.5 that we have been waiting for. Daily, in terms of trade opportunities, there's not a massively clear range to work with. I would take this as the last anchor for now. Let's see if price is willing to give something into this. It has, we do have the breaker structure. It has pushed higher. Just want to see what you can work with here, but again, it's not something you guys need to force. Just because we're discussing what's potentially on the table, the weekly outlooks of the next few weeks, they're already directionally biased or directionally based, but they might just lean into that even more rather than, okay, we can enter, because I don't want you guys to get the wrong idea. Just because I have an expectation for price to, go there, go higher, doesn't mean I consider this a sort of high probability move or high probability environment for me to be putting risk on the table. And with that EU move taking out a break even, that really might be my last potential trade for the year, unless it's willing to give us one more kick or run after a sweep. Ooh, sweep, pushed higher. You expect that to continue now, right? You expect it to go higher. Very, very choppy price action there. But yeah, this to me is a market maker buy model, unless it wants to just engineer trendline liquidity, something like this, something like that. I would expect price to push higher, trade back into this range, and go for that sort of all-time high, and potentially even that big round 7K number that we've also been waiting on. Lastly, something that I actually haven't had a look at all since last week. Cool. Previous monthly low, obviously next target here, I would say, right? It looks like we're headed straight for that wick, and maybe even this week if we are, going to come that close. On the weekly, we've created a bearish order block, and we're pushing lower. And of course, that's a daily retracement to create that bearish order block and push lower. So, we're getting some good displacement today. If this candle closes anything like this, printing this big fair value gap, it's very likely we'll continue lower and pushing for these sort of relatively equal lows on the daily. It wouldn't surprise me. Do I think Bitcoin will still go back up? you know, I don't think all is lost. I think it still can reverse. And, you know, worst comes to worst, guys, if we're getting into a new bear market, which I honestly, you know, not financial advice, but honestly don't think we are. I think this is very, very, very heavy manipulation. Even though, you know, long run, it's very likely Bitcoin will be going up. So if someone's, you know, sort of scared of the investments or whatnot. But yeah, again, like, you know, if we're cutting rates on the dollar next year, the odds of us sort of just plummeting down, 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 and especially this being out of sync with the S&P and whatnot is surprising to me. That's just manipulation. So the odds are, I do think we will get a turnaround. Maybe it will be over this winter time, you know, end of year, going into new year. But yeah, it does leave us in a bit of a weird position and a tough position, if I'm being honest. You know, it is a hard chart to read. If we can, you know, by chance sweep that proves monthly low in reverse and build like a sort of swing bar, then that could be a very, very good scenario for Bitcoin. But it's very early in the month. It's the first day of the month. It's hard to say, and hard to say, you know, what price will show us. Even if this wick comes down and sweeps this, but then has somewhat of a decent turnaround, then that really could set up the sort of next reversal to go higher. But yeah, guys, that is it for this weekly outlook. As usual, any questions at all, anything I can help with, please just drop me a message.